Hey guys, welcome back to Honey Badger Arcade. So I have a video treat for you all that I wanted to share. One of the individuals who contacted me on Discord, shout out to Empty Souls 01 on Discord, sent me some video as evidence of the woke crap going on with Lynn Joyce and her compatriots at, I think it's called Critical Distance. And here is an excerpt I'm going to play for you from a talk that was done 10 years ago by one Chris Ligman discussing what they call, because I'm not sure what they identify as, what they call inherent problems with curation, but also how it serves as a tool for growth. So that you know that this kind of like communist bullshit has been going on for at least 10 years, but I could argue it's been going on for generations, and we're just starting to see it now. This is going to be a little bit eye-opening. And bear in mind that this is Lynn Joyce's group. Lynn Joyce is the narrative designer behind Homeworld 3 and Tales from the Borderlands, which we have also talked about on this channel. So without further ado, let us look at this video. This is about 4 minutes and 30 seconds in, so I will include a link to the full video in the description so you can watch it yourself.
So now we come to the title of this talk, which I spoiled earlier. Curators are class enemies. And I apologize for the bad quality of the image here, but this slide comes from my favorite talk from Indiecade in 2012, wherein Johan Grenspartner, who's one of the founders of Monochrome, advanced the idea of using games as a radical intervention on politics and consumerism. And this slide here didn't have too much to do directly with his talk, but it was to underscore the general.
I like that this guy here is leaving. Like, he's like, heard enough communist bullshit. And the person behind the podium, what is that? Like, what is that? Is that a white whale? It looks like the white whale. Reel her in, boys. Man the harpoons. All right, let's hear some more.
Point, which was this Marxist kind of like bent on disruption that he was talking about. When you curate, no matter what that curation is, you are imposing a point of view. And if the point of view is to establish what is good or exceptional within your field, you should question how or why someone, and that someone might be you, is arriving at that value judgment, because no one does that in a vacuum.
So if you curate, you're doing a bad thing because you should be allowing all perspectives and all propaganda to permeate your psyche. So this is likely the reason why Brutus Rambo was attacked for curating his page. Of course, if you curate in the way that they like say you only promote their kinds of narrative games, whether that's Volcano High, I'm not sure if that's one of them, so I apologize if there was any Volcano High fans here. But games like that they would tend to get behind. The Last of Us Part 2, this new Assassin's Creed game that with the gay black samurai that's coming out. Yes, he's probably going to be gay. And I hope that you're all okay with that, since, you know, you probably, some of you at least, or some people really wanted that black samurai character. Well, guess what? You're going to get more than just that. Or people who are into Spider-Man 2 or Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, whatever. If you supported any of those things, that's a good curator list, right? That's a good one. That's Gone Home, you know, whatever. But if you are like against some of that stuff, well, that's a bad curator list, and you're a bad person, and that shouldn't happen. You should be absorbing our bullshit content. All right, well, anyway, let's keep going. These people, by the way, are anti-art, and that's the main thing that really pisses me off about them. They hate things that are beautiful. They hate things that people enjoy. They hate everything. They're nihilists. They are nihilists. And I'm going to do a reading a little bit later, maybe in another video, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure yet, where I'm going to be reading from a book about nihilism so you can have a better understanding of where it comes from and why it is so destructive. Because I think that ultimately all of this stuff stems from nihilism. So, but anyway, let's listen to some more.
Which arrives at my next point, which is, this account is great, by the way. How do we square what we do with the problems that curation poses. Because I think that curation is a natural byproduct of what critical distance does by highlighting certain articles each week and by necessity not highlighting certain others.
Critical Distance is Lynn Joyce's, I think she was with that organization, if I remember correctly.
But I think we can resist the idea of necessarily creating a canon with the links that we promote. Rather, I approach critical distance as being in a position to offer an alternative to the canon already being promoted by hegemonic power structures, things like popular websites, mainstream developers, well-financed institutions, none of which I would consider critical distance all on its own. And I realize all this sounds quite nebulous, but in practice it's actually not that difficult. There are really only three major things that I take into consideration when I'm going through our long list each week. They aren't hard and fast rubrics, but I find them to be important guidelines. They help critical distance remain not just consistent in its priorities, but to continue to refine those priorities over time. The first of those considerations is acknowledge how your bias limits you as a curator. Now,
oh my God. See, exactly what I'm saying. Acknowledge how your bias limits you as a curator. Basically, you don't like my shitty narrative games about my LGBTQ, Muslim, handicapped, autistic female main character. There's a problem with your taste. You're limiting yourself. You should be open to this. Oh, by the way, yeah, the gameplay sucks. There's nothing to do. It's essentially just like a visual novel, and you are going to feel like crap by the end of it because the whole thing is based on shaming you for being a straight, white, cisgendered male, or a, as we like to call it, a normal person.
Ben and I both come from a certain tradition of academia, as do several of our contributors, both past and
yeah, communist academia is a bit redundant. Academia is just like all Marxist garbage now. All of it is. I watched a debate or discussion yesterday with a panel of women, and they were arguing over feminism. And one of them, who was pro-feminist, said that she never heard any feminist rhetoric coming from her gender studies course, which I pressing X'd out on that one. But she did hear it from some of the other courses like literature and some of the sciences. And she thought that was a win or an own. But the truth is, this commie feminist Marxist garbage is all over our schools. It's everywhere. It's in every department. When I went to college, I had a science class. I had a chemistry class, and feminism came up. Women's issues, leftism, all that. It came up. Like the struggle, whatever you want to call it. So this stuff comes out of academia in almost every single discipline, and it turns kids into activists, and it puts them 6 figures in debt, sometimes at least 5 figures in debt, and it makes them bitter and angry. And of course, it gives them a scapegoat, which is essentially the white, het, cis-normative patriarchy. Capitalist patriarchy, by the way. So yeah, all of this is just trash. She's going to say we come from a specific, I mean, I haven't watched this whole thing, but it sounds like she's saying that I'm learning this from my college, not from some special course. It's everywhere. It doesn't matter.
And present, that on its own has a potential to profoundly influence the kind of things that we're likely to gravitate towards and to feature. It also comes with certain class and race biases because those two are inscribed in academic traditions. On top of that, both Ben and I are white, and again, so are the majority of our contributors, and that is a huge problem that we are attempting to rectify as we speak.
Well, it's a problem because you suck, not because you're white. You should quit. You should quit for sure. You all should quit. If you can't approach this objectively and create content or media or art for people purely on merit, and you have to make everything about your skin color or their skin color or your gender or their gender or what you like to do in the bedroom or the cave or wherever it is you live, that's you. That's a you problem. That's not a me problem.
So the fact that over the history of critical distance, only a small percentage of our contributors have been anything but Whenever possible, it's important that we correct for that and do so consistently going forward. It also means that if there's a certain topic or theme for which we are woefully unsuited, we need to recognize when to step the hell out of the way and let someone else speak. The second consideration is the works that you reference are not to be understood in terms of absolutes, but as being in conversation with pieces to either side of them. This goes back to refusing to treat critical distance as a creator of canon, but rather as a custodian of dialogue.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is, again, trying to bring in this whole dialectical process to game development. She's saying, essentially, I know that I'm not going to be able to, like, completely destroy your games all in one fell swoop. So instead, I'm going to do it slowly over time, like a degenerative disease that slowly eats away, like a parasite that eats away at the host. And I hope that you will allow me a foot in the door. These people have to be gatekept, full stop, like 100%. Okay. We have to be ever vigilant of this crap. Now, you might notice that this room is not exactly packed to the gills with people who are in attendance. And that is true. But remember, none of this stuff that happens is grassroots. It doesn't have a popular support from the common person. Most gamers or consumers, they don't even know this stuff is going on. And many of the time, they just want to support their favorite brand or franchise. But these people are 100% absolutely astroturfed. They are funded by extremely powerful elite interest groups, whether those are, giant corporations like BlackRock or the government. I know that the Department of Homeland Security watches this channel and several other of the people that are involved in the Sweet Baby Inc. Gamergate 2 space. I know the government's watching that. I know that they're trying to move the needle. And it's not just the American government, it's the Canadian government, it's the European Union, it's the UN, it's the UK, it's Australia. So this is not natural. This is not an organic thing. This is being forced on us. And the purpose of it is control. Now, of course, this blob that's talking right now is a useful idiot. She doesn't know what's going on. She thinks that what she's doing is something that is important and it makes her feel special. It makes her feel like a good person. But it is not the point. She is destroying this. She's an idiot that is useful. And I mean that as an insult, even though that's not really what it is. These people are really great at infiltrating and taking over spaces. I've done a video about the 5 stages of entryism, and I suggest that you check it out because that's how it works. This is what's happening. Remember, this is 10 years old. This company or whatever, this organization, they've been around at least 10 years and they're still involved in making content. So maybe we should be looking at what other stuff Critical Distance is involved with. All right, I'm going to play some more of this. Let's finish the video off, and then I'm going to let you guys give me your thoughts.
We can approach curation as revealing a conversation that is already taking place, even if the individual writers you're referencing might not be in touch with each other or realize that they are actually in conversation with each other. It's not really about creating a definitive document. Rather, it's about creating the document that is most interesting or relevant at that point in time, something which offers insight or subverts our understanding or expands our sensitivity about a subject. In a given week, Critical Distance can cover upwards of a dozen disparate topics, sometimes from over 50 writers. If it sounds chaotic, that's because it is, but we can tease out continuities which form discourses on games as a whole. That's why, especially going forward, like I said earlier, I intend Critical Distance to avoid language like best or comprehensive when we curate. This is not about pitting writers against each other, but revealing how they complement each other.
So they don't believe in meritocracy, as usual. This is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. Do you realize how important it is that we have beautiful art? People talk about the ways that the political can be sort of, used to make the best of our country or our respective homelands. And there's some truth to that. Getting the right people in office and the right policies and all that is good. But our culture is extremely important. I think it's more important. You let me know what you think in the comments, because if we don't have a culture that is in love with its own society, and instead it's only focused on deconstruction, destruction, corruption, you know, and this meaningless, nihilistic, and yet narcissistic approach to creating media and art and content, then it is intended to demoralize, and it will destroy us. And we have to be able to discern the beautiful and the transcendent from the ugly. And these people are all about the ugly. They think that showing you something ugly is somehow important or meaningful. That's why so much of our media is garbage right now. Not just, obviously, not just our video games, which I think the game industry is due for a crash, and I'm okay with it. I think a lot of people are playing older games now. They're playing indie titles, and you should definitely get into older games and indie titles, because these woke activists that are running this industry deserve to run it into the ground. And hopefully these developers will learn from this. But for now, they are complicit, because this viewpoint is actually a mainstream viewpoint. It's just a little bit like more revealed to its final conclusion. Like, you know, for example, I know a lot about feminism. There is this radical part of feminism that is lesbian separatists that want to live on an island with a bunch of other women, and they, for however they're going to have this done, they're basically going to have all of their needs taken care of by men who are essentially doing slave labor. Now that sounds like something out of fiction, but there are legit feminists that believe this. But the only reason why that ridiculous notion is allowed to be entertained is because there are feminists that accept the baseline assumption that we live in an oppressive patriarchy. And you'll notice, if you ever see people arguing over feminism, you'll see they will say, well, there's a lot of different kinds of feminism, or feminism to me means this, or feminism to me means that. And that's all standpoint theory, postmodern gobbledygook, the purpose of which is to make it impossible to talk about the thing that's being talked about. But the truth is, we're at the point now where men are identifying as women so that they can feel like their lives matter. I don't know if you notice, but men are the number one group of people that it's okay to shit on, followed closely by white men in our society. And so when you have this much demonization of a sex, some people, some men are going to take drastic steps in order to avoid that. And so you have trans women exploding. And you also have the opposite effect, because if young women are convinced that being a man is just like so much privilege and so much better, then they're going to transition too. And so we would have thought that the entire trans thing 10 years ago was a fringe idea that only happened in a very small number of cases. Now it seems like it's everywhere. And couple that with Drag Queen Story Hour and this whole neo-pronoun, non-binary, furry identity stuff, and it seems like it's a bottomless pit. So the lesbian separatist island scenario really isn't that radical, because you accept the premises, even the basic ones, and you're going to get everything else. And this is what's happening here. This video is 10 years old. And they're trying to claim that right off the bat, you're not supposed to have opinions on things. You're not entitled to preferences, but they are.
Lastly, the third consideration is, I strongly believe that when you are empowered with a certain amount of reach and influence, that comes with the responsibility to protect and uplift those who yet don't. This, I think, is the spirit of what Anil Dash was trying to do when he was only retweeting women for a year, and how other individuals and organizations have sought to signal boost marginalized voices. The danger here is in presuming that this is all that is required of us.
They're lying when they say that. These people don't actually care about marginalized voices. They don't care about minorities. They don't care about women. They don't care about gays. They don't. It's all just a means to an end. So when they say this stuff, don't even take it with a grain of salt. Just ignore it. It is a lie. Okay? The majority of people who are involved with, for example, going back to gaming for a moment, the majority of people that take fighting games very seriously or MOBAs very seriously tend to be non-white. They tend to be Asians. In the fighting game community, there's a lot of Latinos and blacks that play. They don't care about that. It's always been that way, by the way. It's always been that way. But these people, they're tourists. They don't understand the industry. They don't understand the culture. They hate the gamers because the majority of gamers are men. And they hate men. And they want to just destroy it all, but they're doing it under the guise of caring. And this is the most infuriating part of all this, because people believe them.
On the contrary, what I believe critical distance should be in the business of is empowering voices to move from the periphery of the conversation into the main body of the discourse. To this end, we try to do two things. First, we create a safer space, not a safe space because that's a check we can't cash, but a space which is sensitive to the concerns of marginalized participants and will, whenever possible, adapt to accommodate. So, for instance, we will not link to any material that contains hate speech or is abusive toward an individual or group. If we must link to something volatile for the sake of context, or if we are referencing something that deals with a triggering subject matter, it will absolutely be bracketed with content warnings. Second, whenever possible, we want to promote the work and subject matter of underrepresented individuals, and do so not as an occasional nod, but as an integral component of the site. This is stuff that we're still working on, and I dare say it's going to be a continual process. It does not mean we will never consider articles from a major writer or publication, but it might mean, for instance, that we won't link to the same white guy 4 times a month. And if you're
even if the white guy is right 4 times a month and it's worth sharing, but we're not going to do it just because he's a white guy. These people are awful. These people are awful. Like, she's going to get applause. I guarantee it. I don't know. I haven't watched this whole video. She's going to get applause. Let's find out.
You're going to send us an opinion piece about BioShock Infinite, it had better be really original.
BioShock Infinite, by the way, absolutely subversive, woke garbage. Sorry, maybe the gameplay wasn't terrible, but the message in it, absolute woke garbage. I highly recommend a YouTuber who's not, well, he's not a YouTuber. He's a content creator, used to be on YouTube, but he's no longer on YouTube. I believe he has a channel on BitChute. If you don't know about BitChute, I would recommend checking it out. Rumble and Odyssey. I think he's on Odyssey a lot. His name is American Krogan. And he does very good, in-depth analysis of video games. He's done the Wolfenstein franchise, the newer Wolfenstein game. I think it was New Colossus, I believe. And he sort of went in a deep dive of that. He went through BioShock, the original BioShock. I like the game, but there is some subversive, weird stuff going on. Because essentially it paints libertarianism in a bad light, and it makes no sense, honestly. The game does. And I think it's because these people hate Ayn Rand, they hate libertarianism. I mean, I have my criticisms of libertarianism, but they just hate capitalism or the idea of owning property, because that's what capitalism is. Like, I don't even like to use the word capitalism because it's loaded, it's created by communists. I would prefer to just use the word property rights, because that's what we're talking about. And if you use the word property rights, their arguments against it disintegrate. It doesn't work, okay? So anyway, American Krogan's done some good work. He went through The Last of Us Part 2. He went through a number of other games. So I would recommend it. He's way better at this stuff than I am. I don't pretend to be an expert on any of this, but I like to think of myself as a facilitator. If I know that there's someone out there doing good stuff, I'm going to try to suggest them. So if I remember, I will put a link to American Krogan's Odyssey channel in the description. All right.
So this is our vision for critical distance. It's ongoing, and we hope to continue building it and to continue making it into a hub for games writing and a valuable resource for everyone to come and share and benefit from. And I hope you'll join us in that. Thank you.
Yep, applause. Now, maybe they felt like it was standard operating procedure to applaud, but I'm not really a fan of any of this. But anyway, let me end the show there. I wanted to share this because, again, people were asking me about Lynn Joyce's involvement. They had questions. I think that the proof is in the pudding. The game is out now. The people who are critical of the game are being silenced. They're being banned. They're being blocked. They're being kicked out of forums and Discord servers and other places. And there are bots that are celebrating this game. I haven't even played it. I never played it. But I think this is abominable. Abominable? An abomination. Abominable. Anyway. So yes, I think this is ugly, and I think you guys should see that. So I'm gonna end it there. Thank you so much for coming and checking out this video. Again, we will have our Discord server up pretty soon, hopefully today. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave me a comment, let me know what you think about this story and these revelations in the comments. Long live Vivian.